All right, what we got here in the shop today, the frame off a 1984 XL350R. Been sitting around just a bare frame for a bit, so the bearing races, we got some corrosion on them. We're gonna punch those out, install a new set of bearings. So someone's already put tapered rollers on this guy. Would have been just ball bearing stock. So I got the Motion Pro tools to get this guy off, and then we're gonna fire the races out of here and press the new ones in, grease up the bearing, and install that. So let's go. There's a few ways to get these races out, and honestly, quickest and easiest. Nice big punch, and you can get right on the lip of the bearing. And because it's a nice big heavy punch, you actually don't have to hit it that hard. A couple little taps and that's gonna come right in. We'll get the new ones in there, but first I'm going to take the bearing off the lower triple as well here. Okay, so these are the bearings and the races in the package and the dust seals. Obviously on the triple there's a dust seal on the bottom, and then we got the lower bearing. The upper bearing goes on the top like that. This one just slides right off of that shaft. It's not pressed on, but this guy's pressed on. So you can just use a chisel and go from under here and kind of wedge it in there lightly and punch this off. I mean, it's not incredibly hard to get it off of here, but you don't really want to damage the lower triple, especially an aluminum one like this. So Motion Pro makes a tool. It's going to get right on that and be able to slide it off without damaging the lower triple. It works best on the tapered bearings. It doesn't really work on the races for the ball bearing. Okay, so this is a steering stem tool. And essentially what we're gonna do is remove the outer cage and the rollers off of the bearing. And then we're gonna slide this over, and all those little set screws we're gonna grab onto the inner race. And then we put this on the top of the triple, so it's gonna go like that. Screw this down into the threads here. And like most spoolers, it's just got this threaded piece that's gonna go in the top. It's going to push on the top triple, lift the bearing out. Cage off. Rollers. So that's basically set up. So then we take this guy here. So that's gonna be where this locates. Drop that down onto the top of the steering stem. Put the cap on. Drop that. Thread this guy down. There we go, bottomed out there. There, now that it's nice and snug, just put it down for simplicity, but trust me. Here, you heard that pop. free. It should just slide over where the upper bearing goes. You just got to take the tool off. Yeah. Get the dust seal. That off. And that's all the garbage. New dust seal to go on. And then we'll throw the new bearing, the new race on. So we use the same tool, just in the inverse, to press that down. Okay, so here is the new bearing that's going to go on. This is the same bearing top and bottom on this bike. And we can see that it's a nice tight fit, but the bottom one is going to go face up, right, with the cone facing upwards, and the top one obviously goes with the cone facing downwards. So to get that on there, we can use, again, the Motion Pro tool, and we're going to come find the adapter ring that is going to push down on the center. You don't want this ring to be pushing on the outer cage. You can bend these cages and then you don't have smooth rotation of the bearing. Before we do that, I'm going to do two things. One is pack it with grease, and the second is come in with the heat gun and heat up the inner race of the bearing. So we got the Maximo waterproof grease. It's perfect for this bearing. And they make tools like little packers. This is kind of like this. You put that in, and then you put a dab of grease in it, and a shaft that comes down to press the grease into there. But honestly, it's really easy to do manually. It's just a little messy. Well, let's get at it. Let's take a glob of this guy. And you put it on the flat side of the palm of your hand. And all you want to do is get enough grease into the rollers here until it's going to start coming out the top. But on steering head bearings, you don't really want to overpack them, not overpack, but you don't want to pack them too thick like you might do on a tapered wheel bearing, let's say, because there's not a lot of axial load on it, like on a wheel bearing where the bearing is going to be vertical and you're getting a lot of forces like this on it. You don't really get that same, you get more up and down and sort of impact front to back on these. You know, if you put a ton of grease that's thick, especially when it's colder, you might get steering feel that feels really difficult to turn, almost like you have a steering damper turned up too high, something like that. So you just want to get enough in there to lubricate all the rollers, obviously, but not overdo it, if that makes any sense. And as you're doing this, obviously you're taking the grease, and when you're pushing it on your hand, it's forcing it up through the rollers, right? So when you start seeing it come out the top of the rolls, that's when you know there's enough in that spot, and you just kind of keep going around and around. So you can start to see it's coming up through here now. So you just want to sort of get that even all the way around. There we go. So it looks pretty even all the way around. I'm going to take a little bit of the excess off. I probably should have planned ahead, but it's down here, bearing on it, back in the tub, get grease on everything. Hoo-ha! She good. So for the races, the first thing I'm actually going to do is come in here just with a 3M pad and clean up any little corrosion, that kind of thing that's in there. Any of the dirt, sprayed out with a brake clean. Just want that nice and clean, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of grease in here, just enough to help the race slide in there. And to drive the races in, so we got the Motion Pro really worn out tool, but basically this is aluminum. It's not going to damage the race when it goes on, right? So you want the cup to fit, that's the right one. So the die to fit right nicely in the cup like that. and should punch it right in there without doing damage to anything. As you can see, these are sacrificial. We just got a little bit of brake cleaner on this. We're just going to go back and forth in here all the way around. It's looking pretty good. So we'll just get a little bit of grease on that and drive the race in. Take the race. Try to get it lined up as square as possible. Obviously that isn't. Pretty good. And give it a little whack. There you go, seated down all the way around. Put a little bit of grease on after I cleaned it up. There we go, lined up again. That's the sound you want to hear. Okay, so I threw the bearing back in the box for the upper after I greased it there. This is going to go back to the customer like this because he's going to take the frame, he's going to cap these off, and then this is going to get blasted and powder coated. But he wanted to do the bearings first, just because that's the way his timeline worked out. So wanted to bang that out for him. And yeah, now he's good to go. This will just slide in, and then all he has to do is pop the upper one on, and she's good to go. Piggity pow, simple. When you got the right tools handy at DIY Moto, it makes your job a lot easier.